Ghosts of Gettysburg. The Battle of Gettysburg, which was fought in early July 1863, left a profound and haunting legacy that still resonates beyond its historical significance. Among the countless stories of bravery and loss, the battlefield and its surrounding town have also become synonymous with tales of restless spirits. While reports of ghostly apparitions and unexplained phenomena are plentiful, certain stories stand out because of their kinda disturbing details and the mysterious imprints they've left on the area. One of the most mysterious and frequently recounted of these tales is centered around Devil's Den, a jagged outcrop of boulders that served as a strategic vantage point during the battle. Basically, Confederate sharpshooters used this natural fortress to devastating effect, and the area became the site of intense and bloody combat. After this, visitors to Devil's Den have long reported strange occurrences, from malfunctioning electronics to unexplained voices echoing among the rocks. One especially interesting ghost sighting involves a barefoot, ragged figure often described as a disheveled soldier. This apparition has been seen wandering the rocks, sometimes interacting with the visitors. Witnesses have described him pointing or gesturing toward a specific area and saying, "What you're looking for is over there," before vanishing without a trace. His appearance is also consistent with the clothing worn by some Confederate soldiers, who were often poorly outfitted. Some speculate he could be a sharpshooter who fell at Devil's Den, condemned to eternally linger near the site of his final moments. Photographers have also captured strange anomalies in the area, including shadowy figures and ghostly outlines that defy explanation. These occurrences make Devil's Den one of the most infamous locations for paranormal activity in Gettysburg. And another interesting story comes from Gettysburg College, specifically its oldest building, Pennsylvania Hall. During the battle, this structure basically served as a hospital where the wounded and dying were brought for treatment. One account involves two college administrators who entered the building's elevator late at night. When the doors opened, they found themselves staring into what appeared to be a Civil War-era operating room. The scene was horrifyingly vivid, being bloodied soldiers lay on makeshift tables while doctors and nurses moved frantically to save lives. As the elevator doors closed and reopened, the vision disappeared, leaving the men freaked out. This incident remains one of the most well-known supernatural encounters at Gettysburg College and is frequently cited as evidence of the battlefield's lingering energy. While these stories stand out for their detailed and personal nature though, the haunted reputation of Gettysburg extends far beyond just Devil's Den and Pennsylvania Hall. For example, Triangular Field, another notorious location, is said to be a hotspot for shadowy figures and ghostly sensations. Little Round Top, where Colonel Joshua Chamberlain's regiment famously held their ground, has also its own share of spectral sightings, with visitors reporting the sound of musket fire and the presence of long-dead soldiers. Even the Jenny Wade house offers a somber glimpse into the civilian toll of the battle. Jenny Wade, the only civilian killed during the conflict, was struck by a stray bullet while baking bread in her sister's kitchen. Her untimely death has left a profound mark on the house, where visitors claim to experience mysterious cold spots, disembodied voices, and doors that move without explanation. Ghosts of Fort Mifflin. Fort Mifflin, constructed in 1771, is a historical landmark in Philadelphia and is considered a haunted location. Its walls echo the turmoil of centuries, beginning with the Revolutionary War, where hundreds of soldiers made their final stand against British forces. Later, the fort became a Civil War prison where thousands endured unimaginable suffering. Confined in dark, damp cells, many prisoners succumbed to starvation, disease, and despair. These tragedies seem to have left a mark on the area, and Fort Mifflin is now a magnet for those interested by the paranormal. Over the years, visitors and staff alike have reported a wide range of strange phenomena. Ghostly footsteps and disembodied whispers are commonly heard, while other encounters involve shadowy figures and apparitions. Paranormal investigators frequently visit, drawn by stories of spectral soldiers patrolling the grounds and the anguished cries of long-dead prisoners. Some even claim to have seen apparitions of soldiers polishing their weapons even when no reenactors are present. Others report catching whiffs of bread baking or even the scent of wood fire, both of which seem out of place in the abandoned fort. And one of the most notorious hauntings at Fort Mifflin actually involves the Faceless Man, who's an apparition believed to be William H. Howe, a Union soldier executed during the Civil War. Historical accounts describe Howe as a skilled marksman and a determined individual who faced his fate with unyielding courage. Basically, Howe's story began when he was bedridden with dysentery, an illness that plagued Civil War soldiers. After recovering at home, Howe accidentally killed his drunken enrolling officer in a misunderstanding. Despite his pleas for clemency, including a desperate letter to President Lincoln, Howe ended up being executed. Witnesses to his execution noted the tragic dignity of his final moments. The bag placed over his head at the gallows may explain why his ghost appears without a face, watering the fort as a lingering reminder of his tragic end. Also, during the Revolutionary War, the fort played a critical role in delaying British forces, which allowed George Washington's army to regroup. Nearly 70% of the fort's defenders were killed or wounded in this intense battle. Those who survived burned the fort to prevent its capture, escaping under the cover of darkness. By the Civil War, Fort Mifflin had been reconstructed and served as a military prison. The conditions for prisoners were dire, being that they were crammed into bomb-proof shelters without any adequate food, water, or sanitation. Letters from inmates described cells that were perpetually wet and dark, with prisoners forced to sleep on wooden boards and endure spoiled rations. These harsh realities may explain why so many spirits are said to remain trapped within the fort's confines. Haunted Moonshine Church and the Blue-Eyed Six. The story of the Blue-Eyed Six is an example of crime mixed with local legends in Lebanon County, Pennsylvania. Basically, in 1878, 6 men, including 4 conspirators and 2 hired killers, orchestrated the murder of Joseph Raber, a destitute man living in a modest hut in the Blue Mountain region. Relying on the charity of others, Raber likely had no idea that several life insurance policies had been taken out in his name under the guise of covering his care and burial expenses. These policies were actually a ploy for financial gain, as the men plotted his death to claim the payouts. The conspirators hired 2 men to carry out the murder, resulting in Raber's drowning in Indian Town Run. Initially ruled an accidental death, Raber's remains were buried in Moonshine United Zion Church Cemetery. The crime unraveled when the son-in-law of one conspirator confessed, leading to the arrest of all 6 men. Their shared blue eyes earned them the nickname the Blue-Eyed Six, a detail that interested the newspapers at the time. Though all were convicted in 1879, George Zeckman was later acquitted after a retrial, while the remaining 5 ended up being hanged. Myths about the case then abound, including the false belief that all 6 men were buried along Raber in Moonshine Cemetery, or that they were hanged from a tree nearby. In reality though, their executions occurred at the county prison, and they were buried separately across various cemeteries. These inaccuracies have ended up fueling the site's haunted reputation, especially given the cemetery's connection to Raber's murder. Visitors to Moonshine Church and Cemetery often report ghostly encounters, with one of the most popular legends describing 6 glowing blue lights believed to represent the restless spirits of the Blue-Eyed Six. Witnesses claim that these lights can be summoned by specific rituals, such as walking around the church or cemetery 3 times in a certain direction. Alongside these tales, unexplained sounds from the surrounding woods are attributed to the location's proximity to a military base, where echoes travel through the hollow. The area is also home to other ghostly stories, including that of a headless horseman seen near the cemetery. Another creepy tale involves an entity called the Red Devil, said to haunt the church grounds. There are also legends too of a girl struck by lightning after reciting the Lord's Prayer backward in the church. This story seems to have originated in the 1960s, following the destruction of the original log church by fire in 1961, caused by an overheated stove. Other reports speak of shadowy figures and supernatural phenomena near Rayber's grave. Some believe that the murder victim's spirit still lingers and is unable to find peace. The ghostly handprint at the Carbon County Jail. So, the story of the handprint in cell 17 of the Carbon County Jail in Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania, is tied to the era of the Molly Maguires, which were basically a secret society of Irish coal miners who were accused of carrying out acts of sabotage and violence in protest against the harsh and exploitative conditions of 19th century Pennsylvania coal mines. Then, in 1877, Alexander Campbell, a man widely believed to have been a member of the Mollies, was arrested and charged with murder. Despite his insistence that he was innocent, the legal system of the time was really unforgiving. Campbell was convicted and then sentenced to death by hanging, a fate shared by several other men accused of being part of the society. As the story goes, on the day of his execution, Campbell maintained his innocence to the very end. While confined in cell 17, he pressed his dirty hand against the wall, leaving behind the distinct imprint that you see on the screen. Witnesses claim that as he did so, he declared, "This is the handprint of an innocent man." Shortly afterward, he was led to the gallows, where he was hanged alongside others who were convicted of similar crimes. So yeah, now, according to local lore, the handprint refuses to fade or be removed. Over the years, there's been numerous attempts that have been reportedly been made to scrub the mark from the wall. Jailers and later custodians are said to have painted over it repeatedly, only for the handprint to reappear undiminished. In one account too, even after a section of the wall was completely demolished and rebuilt, the print returned to its original spot, as though it was tied to some supernatural persistence. Skeptics, though, have long dismissed the tale as a sort of exaggeration or fabrication. In the 1990s, an investigator used infrared technology to examine the handprint and concluded that it was not as undeniable as the legend suggested. This researcher claimed that the print had not been painted over or subjected to demolition, which undermined the dramatic claims about its supposed permanence. Also, some accounts argue that the original handprint was made with the left hand, while the print currently visible is from a right hand, which raises questions about whether the mark has been altered or replaced over time. But despite all the skepticism that surrounds it, the handprint still remains a symbol of Alexander Campbell's unwavering assertion of his innocence. Visitors to the Carbon County Jail now can see the mark for themselves during guided tours where the story of Campbell and the Mollies is recounted in detail. The cell walls bear other signs of the jail grim's history too, but it's the handprint that draws the most attention. And also, the legend has also become more popular with popular culture. In 1970, a movie about the Molly Maguires was released, starring Sean Connery as the leader of the group. Though it provides a dramatized account of the Mollies' activities, the film still brought more attention to their story, and by extension, to the mysterious handprint in cell 17. But yeah, for now, historians still continue to debate the true nature of the Mollies' activities, with some viewing them as labor rights pioneers and others as violent conspirators. The ambiguity only deepens the interest surrounding Campbell's case and the whole mark that he left behind. Ghosts at Valley Forge. The graves and ghostly legends of Valley Forge have been shaped by the hardships endured during the winter of 1777 and 1778. Victorian visitors, drawn by tales of soldiers freezing and succumbing to illness, speculated that countless unmarked graves lay beneath the site's rolling fields. Two locations were particularly associated with burials, being an area near Varnum's and Huntington's quarters, marked by a lone headstone inscribed JW, and a sloping section of land along Outer Line Drive, where erosion reportedly revealed skeletal remains of soldiers buried in crouched positions. The headstone, later linked to John Waterman, became the centerpiece of the Waterman Monument, erected in 1901 by the National Society of the Daughters of the Revolution of 1776, to honor all soldiers thought to rest at Valley Forge. Another monument followed in 1911, placed below Wayne's Woods, commemorating additional burial grounds. These markers solidified the belief that Valley Forge was a vast resting place for Revolutionary War soldiers. Reports of spectral activity further deepened the lore. In 1895, witnesses described ghostly campfires flickering on stormy nights, with shadowy figures believed to be the spirits of fallen soldiers roaming the hillsides. These tales then spread rapidly, mixing the historical suffering of the soldiers with the idea of lingering unrest. Even abandoned tenements in the nearby village were said to harbor restless spirits, including that of a man shot while attempting to rob a railroad station. Efforts to identify burial sites then continued into the 20th century. By the 1930s, the Veterans' Graves Registration Division of the WPA cataloged graves, though the methods and accuracy of these records remain unclear. By 1975, when plans for a modern cemetery at Valley Forge were proposed, there was still concern that digging could disturb Revolutionary War graves. However, archaeological investigations have since uncovered no definitive human remains, only pits filled with animal bones and refuse from soldiers' rations. The mystery of the burial sites deepened when the original location of John Waterman's headstone was lost after its removal in 1939. This raised questions about whether Waterman had ever been buried there or if the headstone was misplaced. National Park Service historian Joseph Lee Boyle also stated that no verifiable human graves have ever been found within the park, challenging long-held assumptions. Overall though, despite the lack of physical evidence, the lore of Valley Forge still persists. Stories of soldiers buried in mass graves and the spirits of the Revolutionary dead wandering the campgrounds continue to attract visitors. Legends of bones protruding and spectral sentinels maintaining their eternal watch evoke a haunting connection to the past. Even with modern historical and archaeological scrutiny, the graves and ghosts of Valley Forge remain a mystery. The Ogua Monster. The Monongahela River, a waterway running through West Virginia and Pennsylvania, has long been associated with the mysterious legend of the Ogua. Native American tribes, including the Shawnee and Delaware, first told of a monstrous creature lurking beneath the river's surface, warning of its lethal power. The Ogua was said to drag unsuspecting victims from the shore and drown them, then storing the bodies in its underwater lair to feast on later. These tales predate European settlement, establishing the beast as a persistent and terrifying presence in regional folklore. Basically, the Ogua is described as a massive turtle-like creature measuring up to 20 feet in length and weighing nearly 500 pounds. Its reddish-brown, scaly skin, stubby legs, and long, thick tail added to its prehistoric appearance. Unlike many aquatic cryptids, the Ogua is said to move on land with surprising speed, using its legs and dragging its formidable tail behind it. The tail leaves distinctive grooves in the mud, which is an indicator of its terrestrial excursions. The creature's head is also often compared to that of a giant snapping turtle with jaws powerful enough to crush bones, and its yellow or red eyes are said to gleam with a predatory intelligence. And historical accounts also reinforce the Ogua's fearsome reputation. Settlers reported encounters with a dark, massive shape in the water, and warnings of its presence passed from one generation to the next. One of the earliest recorded incidents occurred in 1745 when a young boy was reportedly snatched from the riverbank near Holt, West Virginia by a monstrous creature. It's said that the beast dragged him into the water, never to be seen again, leaving the boy's family and community in shock and fear. Later accounts describe the Ogua preying on animals along the river's edge, with its immense jaws crushing deer and livestock before pulling them into the depths. Some stories even claim that hunting parties managed to kill creatures, describing their hulking reptilian bodies and terrifying size. However, no remains have ever been verified, leaving the true nature of the beast a mystery. Theories about the Ogua's origins range from plausible to fantastical. Some believe the creature could be a rogue alligator that traveled north via connected waterways like the Mississippi and Ohio rivers. This explanation fits reports of aggressive behavior and shore-based attacks. Others suggest the Ogua is an oversized alligator snapping turtle, which are known for their powerful jaws and predatory instincts. The reddish-brown color and turtle-like appearance also support this hypothesis, though such turtles are not really typically found in the region. More speculative theories propose that the Ogua is a prehistoric survivor, being a relic of the dinosaur age. Some researchers compare it to plesiosaurs, which are marine reptiles thought to have gone extinct millions of years ago. These explanations, though interesting, lack scientific backing and leave the Ogua firmly rooted in the realm of cryptid lore. The 20th century also brought new attention to the legend, especially during a series of sightings in the 1980s near Rivesville, West Virginia. Coal miner John Edward White's encounter with a large, serpentine creature during a nighttime fishing trip reignited interest in the Monongahela River monster. White's vivid description of the Ogua's massive head and thrashing tail added credibility to the legend, inspiring a wave of new reports and drawing cryptozoologists to the region in search of evidence. Allison's grave and the Headless Apparition. The tale of Allison's grave centers on a ghostly figure said to haunt the Mosquito Valley Cemetery near Dubois Town. According to legend, a headless woman appears along the roadside by the grave after nightfall, with her decapitated form draped in long flowing robes. Over the years, countless visitors, many of them local teenagers, have ventured to the site in hopes of witnessing the spectral figure or even just experiencing the aura said to envelop the area. The legend's origins are kinda unclear, but theories have emerged over time, with each attempting to explain the identity of the headless apparition. One account, popularized in Weird, Pennsylvania by Matt Lake, suggests that the ghost is that of a World War I nurse whose plane ended up being shot down. It's said that during the crash, the nurse was decapitated and her remains were sent back to Mosquito Valley, where they were interred along the roadside. This explanation, while being dramatic, is consistent with historical records and timelines. Another theory ties the legend to Edna A. Boger Allison, which was a real woman who died in a plane crash near Aspen, Colorado in 1964. Edna was the second wife of Herbert F. Allison, and following their divorce in 1958, she took over a sand quarry business and property in Nassau, the Bahamas. Then, in June 1964, she boarded a commercial flight from Williamsport to Phoenix before transferring to a Cessna 310 in Aspen, which was bound for Dallas. Severe thunderstorms and high winds disrupted the flight though, and the plane never arrived at its destination. After a months-long search, hunters found the wreckage deep in the mountainous terrain northeast of Aspen. Edna's remains were badly decomposed and were cremated before being sent to her family. Her ashes were then scattered at Mosquito Valley Cemetery, where a gravestone was later erected. Over time, the grave became associated with the Headless Apparition, but skeptics argued that the ghost stories long predate Edna's death. Historical accounts also lend credence to this claim. The earliest recorded sighting of a headless figure near Dubois Town dates back to 1899, decades before Edna's time. An article in the Columbian described a headless woman dressed in long flowing white robes who frightened locals as she appeared nightly along a ravine. The report details incidents of terrified witnesses, including a young woman who ran screaming into a nearby home after encountering the figure, and a man who saw the ghost take the form of a phantom dog. This same article also referenced the discovery of an unidentified skeleton in the mountains near Dubois Town, which some believe belonged to the wandering spirit. But yeah, in general, while many dismiss these tales as folklore, the legend of Allison's grave has had the attention of paranormal investigators. In 2009, the Heart of Pennsylvania Paranormal Society, or HOPS, conducted an investigation at the cemetery, which is now gated and on private property. Despite their efforts, the group found no evidence of ghostly activity. The investigators described the site as quiet and serene, far from the dark atmosphere described in the legend. Safe Harbor Petroglyphs. The carvings on Big Indian Rock and Little Indian Rock depict figures and symbols that continue to puzzle some researchers and visitors. Among the most interesting are human stick figures, turkey tracks, walking birds, and thunderbirds, alongside wavy lines and serpentine forms. The purpose of these carvings still remain unclear, though many believe they held significant meaning for the Algonquin-speaking people who lived in the area over 1,000 years ago. One prominent carving on Big Indian Rock shows a human figure with angled horns, which is a possible representation of a spiritual or mythical being. And nearby, symbols resembling animal tracks and other human-like figures suggest connections to hunting, ritual, or storytelling. On Little Indian Rock, bird and animal carvings, as well as the curving form of the Manitou spirit, also evoke a sense of the sacred, while the serpentine lines hint at celestial alignments. Some researchers suggest that these may have served as markers for seasonal changes like the equinox or solstices, but no definitive interpretation exists. These carvings raise questions about their creators' intent. Were they a form of early communication, mapping important landmarks or events, or did they function as teaching tools for passing down knowledge? Theories also suggest a religious or spiritual purpose, with the Thunderbird symbol often associated with power, storms, or protection. The precise combination of art, astronomy, and practical use also adds to the mystery. Also, it's noted that not all the carvings seem to originate from the same time or cultural context. Alongside ancient petroglyphs, there are more recent carvings, including names and Pennsylvania Dutch folk art. This blending of eras raises further questions about the continuity of the site's use and its changing significance over time. The rocky surfaces of the islands, shaped by river currents and smoothed over centuries, provide a natural canvas for these cryptic images. Their placement suggests deliberate intention, yet the reason for choosing these particular locations remains unknown. Even the tools and techniques used to create such precise carvings on hard stone are subjects of speculation. With no written records to explain their meaning, the petroglyphs leave only their silent marks on the stone. Whether art, calendar, spiritual guide, or all of these combined, their purpose is left to interpretation. Mystery Lights of Hansell Road. Hansell Road in Buckingham, Pennsylvania has long been associated with strange and unexplainable phenomena, mainly concerning the mysterious lights said to drift through the woods and sometimes onto the road. Witnesses have described these lights as either red or green, moving with an unnatural smoothness, at times swinging like lanterns, and at other times gliding or slithering. When the lights are said to reach the road, they reportedly shift into new forms, and some accounts say they drop to the ground and form a ball, while others claim they rise up and approach the onlookers. These strange behaviors make them kinda difficult to explain as ordinary sources like fireflies, flashlights, or marsh gas. One tale connects the lights to the spirits of youths allegedly murdered by a landowner who caught them trespassing on his property. This story also serves to explain the green mist and shadowy figures that have reportedly been seen crossing the road. But despite its strange appeal, researchers have found no record of such murders in Bucks County's archives or newspapers, which leaves the origins of the lights still shrouded in uncertainty. Then, in the late 1990s, the mystery lights began to fade from prominence since there was development on Hansell Road. The gravel path was widened and paved, with the surrounding woods thinned, and a park was built at the road's corner. These changes introduced suburban traffic and light pollution, which may explain why the lights are now seen less frequently. Older accounts too suggest that the lights only appeared when the road was completely dark and still, conditions which are now difficult to replicate. Also, one eyewitness account from the early 2000s that's interesting is about a group of friends who ventured to Hansell Road on a dark, cloudy night to test the legend for themselves. After waiting for about 20 minutes, one of them waded ahead into the tree-lined section of the road. Suddenly, a small red orb emerged from the woods, bobbing slightly as it moved. It then split into two red orbs, floating about 6 feet above the ground and stopping directly in front of the man. His companions yelled for him to return, but he remained transfixed as the lights hovered silently in the darkness. After a moment, the orbs moved off the road and vanished into the woods. The witness emphasized that neither he nor his friends had been drinking, using drugs, or taking any medication, ruling out simple explanations. He noted the complete lack of artificial light and dismissed theories of reflected animal eyes, as no sound of the movement accompanied the orbs' retreat into the forest. The Logan Inn. Built in 1727, the Logan Inn in New Hope, Pennsylvania, has a connection to significant historical events, mainly the Revolutionary War. Soldiers who fought and died during the war were stored in the inn's basement, a detail often linked to the many ghostly sightings reported throughout the building. The spirits of former owners, guests, and even children have been said to linger within its walls. Room 6 is frequently cited as the most active area in the inn. Guests staying in the room have reported strange occurrences, including personal belongings being moved, pillows being pulled from under their heads, and the unmistakable scent of lavender wafting through the air. These events are often attributed to the spirit of Emily Lutz, a woman connected to the inn's former owners. Her apparition, dressed in an old-fashioned gown, has been seen in room 6, the dining room, and even the ladies' bathroom. Beyond Emily's presence, though, other spectral figures are said to wander the Logan Inn. A tearful man has been seen in mirrors, and the laughter of a young boy and girl has been heard echoing through the halls. The little girl, dressed in colonial-era clothing, is also sometimes spotted playing in the parking lot, with her story tied to a tragic drowning after falling from a nearby bridge. Also, the spirit of Aaron Burr, who was infamous for his duel with Alexander Hamilton, is also said to make occasional appearances at the inn. Burr reportedly sought refuge in New Hope after the duel and is believed to return to the Logan Inn, where he once dined and drank. And among the most notable apparitions is that of a Revolutionary War soldier. His solid, lifelike form has startled the staff and guests, only to vanish moments later, leaving behind an icy chill. Another soldier, thought to be a Hessian, has been seen in the basement, a location which we mentioned has some wartime history. A third ghostly soldier too, missing his head, is said to haunt the second floor. The basement itself holds an especially somber energy as well, likely tied to its use as a makeshift morgue for soldiers who perished during the brutal winter months. Visitors have reported hearing the sound of beer kegs rolling across the floor, which is attributed to a male spirit in colonial garb who seems to enjoy keeping an eye on the inn's activities. Paranormal investigators have long been drawn to the inn as well, and they note that the spirits within its walls are regarded as benign, with their connection to the inn perhaps rooted in fond memories or unfinished business. The White Lady of Wopsy. The tale of the White Lady of Wopsy Mountain is among the most well-known ghost stories of central Pennsylvania and originates around the 1930s and is really tied to the rugged terrain near Altoona. This figure is said to haunt the treacherous roadways near Wapsananock Mountain, mainly the curve known as Devil's Elbow. Stories describe her as a woman dressed in white, carrying a lantern, wandering the mountain roads in search of what she lost. According to the most common version of the legend, a newlywed couple was traveling along Juniata Gap Road when their carriage lost control near Devil's Elbow, resulting in a devastating crash. It's said that the husband was killed instantly and the grief-stricken bride fled into the surrounding woods where she succumbed to the cold and died. Some accounts claim she was searching for her husband's body, while others suggest she was looking for a baby who fell from the carriage during the wreck. Over the years though, the narrative has kinda shifted, with some versions asserting that the woman or her husband was beheaded in the crash. It's also said that maybe her body was never found. Reports of her ghost describe a spectral woman appearing near the sharp turn with her lantern casting a faint, strange glow. Drivers claim she has been seen walking along the road, and in some cases, she's been said to manifest as a vanishing hitchhiker. In these accounts, drivers pick up a seemingly ordinary woman near the top of the mountain, only to find that she vanishes from their vehicle as they approach Devil's Elbow. Also, many have connected the story to actual tragedies on these winding roads. One notable incident occurred in 1926 when Margaret Gray and Chester Troutman were involved in a fatal car crash near Buckhorn Road, which is also called Route 36. Their vehicle veered off the road, resulting in Gray's death from severe head injuries. Troutman, who survived with minor wounds, later faced manslaughter charges but was acquitted. This real-life tragedy may have provided the foundation for the White Lady legend. Also, while sightings of the White Lady of Wopsy persist, they're not only confined to that specific road. Less than a mile away, Buckhorn Road is said to host a similar figure, leading some to believe that the same spirit might just haunt both locations. Witnesses describe her sudden appearance on the road, vanishing just as quickly, with her lantern light lingering like a warning. One driver recounted an especially notable experience in 1987. It's said that as they neared Devil's Elbow, a woman in white appeared in the headlights before disappearing without a trace. Her presence prompted them to slow down, likely saving them from a deadly crash on a treacherous turn. Despite improvements to the road over the years though, Devil's Elbow still remains a dangerous curve, and the White Lady's presence is often seen as more of a protective warning to drivers. But her identity and the reasons that she continues to haunt the mountain roads still remains a mystery. Hollidaysburg Hotel. The U.S. hotel in Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania, has a long history of ghostly tales and strange happenings that have made it well known in the area. Built in 1835 by John Doherty, the hotel has survived a fire, numerous owners, and major renovations. But what draws people's attention most are the reports of unexplained sightings and experiences that continue to this day. It all started during renovations in the 1990s when Karen and Jason Yoder worked to restore the hotel. Workers and staff began noticing odd things. Footsteps could be heard when no one was around, and laughter seemed to come from empty rooms. One contractor staying overnight had an especially terrifying experience. It said that he woke up to find a woman in a white gown floating above his bed. This was just the start of a series of strange events though. One of the most well-known stories involves a red-haired woman who appeared in an upstairs room. Several people, including investigators and the hotel owner, claimed to see her lying on the bed, holding her head as if in great pain. She disappeared moments after they saw her. That same night, another investigator saw what he described as a man carrying an axe stepping into the light, prompting him to yell for everyone to leave the building. Staff and visitors have also reported seeing a young boy sitting on the stairs and hearing sounds of parties and celebrations in rooms that are empty. Jason Yoder, the hotel's banquet manager, has had his own encounters. He heard voices and the clatter of dishes coming from upstairs, and when he left the building to avoid the noises, the sounds moved to the floor below. Other employees also have seen people dressed in old-fashioned clothing and have felt the sensation of someone brushing past them when no one was there. One ghost, which is believed to be a bride, is frequently seen and described similarly to the red-haired woman. Another, who is an old man, has been spotted staring at women in the building. Objects often move on their own, with silverware flying out of people's hands, and customers and staff frequently report hearing children laughing, even when no children are present. General Wayne Inn. The General Wayne Inn in Marion, Pennsylvania is one of the oldest buildings in the United States, which was originally built in 1704. Over the centuries, the inn has served various roles, from hosting notable figures like Benjamin Franklin and George Washington to becoming the focus of ghost stories. With a long and complex history, the building has become widely known for its reported hauntings, many of which have been passed down through generations. One of the most frequently mentioned spirits is that of a Hessian soldier named Wilhelm, believed to have been killed in 1777. Wilhelm's presence is often reported in the basement near the wine cellar, where he was said to have been dragged after his death. Witnesses have described him as a young soldier wearing the distinct green uniform of the Hessians who fought for the British during the Revolutionary War. and accounts of his appearances date back over a century, suggesting that his ghost has lingered for far longer than most spirits are believed to remain. Patrons and staff alike have shared encounters with Wilhelm. Bart Johnson, who was a former innkeeper, recounted how Wilhelm would move down the bar, gently blowing on the backs of women's necks. This habit, both eerie and playful, was witnessed on multiple occasions. Others have seen his apparition wandering the inn, while some claim he's been responsible for moving objects or setting up mysterious table arrangements overnight. Beyond Wilhelm, though, there are numerous reports of ghostly activity throughout the inn. Dave Rogers, for example, once saw a decapitated head resting on a chest of drawers in the kitchen. Though it appeared for only a second, the image was so vivid that it left him terrified. Another employee, Alice Gormley, described seeing the ghost of a frightened soldier on the stairwell. According to historical records, a soldier fitting this description had also been seen by witnesses in the same location over 100 years earlier. The inn's reputation for paranormal activity extends to more modern incidents as well. During a 1987 Halloween newscast about the inn's hauntings, patrons gathered at the bar to watch. As the segment aired, the picture on the television began to rotate clockwise, something that had never happened before and didn't occur again afterward. The unexplained nature of the event only deepened the belief that spirits were making their presence known. To investigate these whole phenomena, parapsychologist Micheline Meher conducted a study bringing psychics and skeptics to the site. Psychic Paula Rogers, unfamiliar with the inn's history, reported seeing the ghost of a young soldier in the basement, remarkably close to the spot where others had seen Wilhelm. Her description of his clothing also matched historical accounts, which further added some weight to the long-standing stories. But despite the documented hauntings, the inn's modern history is marked by tragedy. In 1996, it became the site of a murder when chef Jim Webb was killed by his business partner, Guy Cilio, who was later convicted of the crime. The murder seemed to cast a shadow over the building, and the inn ended up struggling to regain its footing. Eventually, it was converted into a synagogue and community center, yet many believe the spirits of its past still remain.